Welcome back to the Clinical Nutrition Center patient chart. We're working through practice management, and we're going to take a quick look at this Other tab. Other is just a collection of management features, kind of all grouped together that we didn't have anywhere else to put. Depending on your login level, you may see different options here than what I'm looking at. Let's go through these real quickly. First, let's look at billing codes. Billing codes was put in to track different codes for different procedures. For example, office visit codes, RD visit codes, MD visit codes, medication dispensing codes that our practice likes to use, some of the lab tests that we like to draw. So these codes are used to populate the MD notes and the RD notes, and to just do quick tracking of billing to integrate with practice management software. You can edit codes or view them or add, or you can grid add if you want to add a bunch of codes. You can click grid add and add lots of codes at a time. Or you can grid edit and edit the whole table all at once. So that's just a quick way that you can get in the most common codes for your practice. The next table is exercise. This is the table that gets used for the food and exercise journal, and this stores all of the preset exercises and calorie counts. So you can get in there and you can edit any of those that you want. You can see that all of them are defaulted to 60 minutes of duration of that activity, but then depending on the minutes of activity, that may change for, if a patient does 30 minutes, it'll calculate it as half that calorie count. Some of these may be customized, so a patient's exercises can get stored in here as well. For example, sitting on the couch, if we go in and edit that, that was actually specific to this patient. So most patients aren't going to see that. So the exercise tables, most of the exercises are stored without a patient ID. So if we look at Tai Chi, there's no patient ID. So when a patient is selecting their exercises, it'll show them all the exercises that have no patient ID, which is the first big block of exercises, and then any exercises that they create also get added to this table, and so they'll see those ones as well. Foods really works exactly the same way as exercises. So in foods, we've included foods that are the most common foods from our exchange lists, and we've categorized those foods. And so you can go through. We have over 200 foods that we've gone ahead and put in the database, which are our most common foods that we use, including our CNC foods, which are our meal replacements. You can do custom foods, and then we have them categorized: dairy, fat, vegetables, so on and so forth. Just like any of the other foods, most of these foods that you see are going to be available to all patients, but patients can create their own foods. I'll bet desk chair was one of those. Oh, it doesn't show there. But again, patients will see either their foods or any foods from the whole database. Help menu. This is the menu that I've used to set up everything that we see in this help menu. And the help menu, each item can either be a header or it can be a submenu, and then we tell it which page to show the help menu on. So if needed, we can do another video that shows how all these features work, but this is really a holder for all of the help videos, and this generates this menu here, the help menu. Resources menu is the same thing. This is a holder spot for everything that we want to have show up on resources. So if we go ahead and populate this table, then all of these items will appear in resources. Anytime we have a patient up, it'll populate that resources menu. So if I'm working with this patient, then in resources, you can see we broke it down into subtables, so we can get the PIs on all of these medications and various other items, whatever we want to put in here. Again, that's all generated from the resources menu. Lesson plans is a holding table for which lesson plans are available to patients. So this table is used in the lesson plan drop-downs in both the MD notes and the RD notes. And we've broken this up into two series. We have series Keeping It Off, and we have 18 handouts. And we have LES, or Lifestyle Education Series, and there's actually 21 handouts. And each of those just tells you which series it is, the name that shows up in the drop-down menu, and then it's actually linked to the document. The handouts are important because when you give a patient that handout, when you select it from your drop-down, the patient will actually have access to this PDF in the patient portal if you set it up that way. So our Keeping It Off handouts are all going to be available electronically, and we can save a lot of paper that way. Moving along, lesson plans, that's what we just looked at. So lesson series, Keeping It Off in LES. So those are the different series that we have available that you saw in lesson plans. So those become available as a drop-down if we're adding a lesson. So let me show you how that works. So if you go back into lesson plans, and we wanted to add a lesson plan, then in that series you'd have the drop-down for LES or Keeping It Off. Medication list is very important. This is a list of the medications that we want to have access to for office dispensing. Really what I've included here is every medication that we're using for weight loss programs, because even if we're writing a prescription, say for Qsymia, which we don't stock in the office, we still want that to show up in dispensing so we know when a patient's using up their refills or is due. Or if we have a patient on phentermine and we're calling it into the pharmacy, we still want it to show up in this dispensing section, so again, so that the system can generate messages and we know when they're due. So each record, you have the medication name, whether or not it's a controlled substance. Substitutions is a feature we're not using, but we can talk about if you wanted to have a possible substitution for that drug. For example, you might list Xenical and list Ally as a substitution. And whether or not we're stocking this medication currently on our office, so that we can track whether we should dispense it from the office or call it into the pharmacy. So typically if you want to, you can add or edit a medication. Let's, for example, edit Xenical just to show you a record. ID is just a database ID. That's the medication name. Controlled 0 if it's not controlled, 1 if it is controlled. Substitutions is a feature we're not using right now. And dispensed in office, no or yes. So no, we don't stock the Xenical. If we did, yes. Almost done. RX Decrypt, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this, but this is used when you write an order for a medication, say phentermine 1-PO-QD. So this table will interpret what you wrote when it's writing the drug label. So if you remember when we were in dispensing and you dispensed a medication and it automatically wrote the label. So if you wrote on your order 1-PO-QD, it'll substitute by mouth for PO and per day for QD. So it ends up saying 1 by mouth per day. So you can use any of your common acronyms that you use in your practice. So you could shorthand it, but then have the computer-generated label in English that the patient can understand. And finally, USDA. This database holds the entire USDA database of all the foods. There's almost 10,000 or almost 8,000 foods from the USDA database that we imported. And this is used just for lookup. So if a patient is asking you about cheddar cheese, you can pull up the nutritional information at your fingertips and not have to go to other resources to find it. And that's all available through the food journal. I think that's it for the other menu. So again, just kind of a laundry list of a bunch of different tables that are used throughout the CNC patient chart.